What is up, guys? It is the FM Seagull here, and today I figured I was going to make a Wonderkid 11 sort of video. The Wonderkid videos always do really well on my channel, and so I figured I should, make one that is very inclusive, have somebody in every single position. So yeah, that is what I've done. I've made a team out of different Wonder Kids that I think look exciting, and I am also planning on simulating into the future with this team, seeing how they're going to do. So if you want to see a video on that, let me know. I will probably do it, like do the simulation anyway, but I will make it into a video if people want to see that. But yeah, let's just get into the players. Um, so we always just start off with a goalkeeper. I don't think I'm gonna attempt to say his name. It's a Ukrainian goalkeeper from Dynamo Kiev. Um, he's got a potential range of 130 to 160, which means that his worst potential in the game is the level of Matthew Ryan, and his best level is Handanovic. Like, it's better than you know people like De Gea and stuff like that in the game. So he can definitely be a very good, very big player, um, if he happens to have that maximum potential. If I or when I do simulate, I'm gonna make sure that every single player in here has their max potential, so you sort of see the best case scenario for all of these players. Next up is our center back partnership, and the first one is this man right here. If you've seen my top 10 Wonder Kids video, you already know about him. I really like this guy in the game. He's super cheap. He's got a potential range of 120 to 150, which just basically just means that at his worst level, he's a center back that you probably never heard of. I was, like looking around, I didn't really find any that, you know, would make a point, when I talked about his potential range. But best case scenario, he could be as good as the new Man City signing Akanji. So he's definitely one to look out for. And for his price, I always say this, he's definitely worth it. Like, even if he doesn't turn out to be, his best, you're still gonna make money from signing him. Now his partner in this team is Arno Martinez, who honestly just looks very solid. He's not big, he's not strong. But that is something that obviously could come with time. He's only 17 years old, so developing those physicals isn't going to be too much of a problem. But he's got 16 tackling, 16 passing, 16 composure, 15 first touch, stuff like that, which for a 17-year-old center back is wild. Um, he can also play out on the right. I wouldn't play him out on the right. He's got bad stamina. He's not the fastest. Um, but yeah, personally, I really like this guy, and his potential range is 130 to 160, which means worst case scenario, he is Fernandez, who plays for Newcastle. But best case scenario, he's Matthias de Ligt. Like, he's a world class center back, so he's definitely somebody who's worth picking up. I don't exactly remember his price, but I do remember that he is under 10 million, or in this save he was anyway. He was under 10 million, so definitely somebody who is worth picking up if you, just want a cheap center back who is definitely going to develop into somebody who's world class in the future. Now, for the fullbacks, we start off with this French right back who's called Brandon Soppy. Um, when you look at his attributes, you already think this guy is a solid right back. He's only 19 years old. He's got a potential range of 130 to 160, which, you might think is a little bit underwhelming, but for a fullback, 130 to 160 is really good. 130, which is the worst case scenario, is the current ability of Brendan Williams, which is like, obviously not a great player, but he could definitely play for a team who get like lower mid-table or are able to fight off relegation in Premier League. But best case scenario, which is 160 obviously, is the current ability of Trent Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool, which is obviously a lot of people think he's the best fullback in the world, despite his, defensive shortcomings. But I think that speaks volumes about Brandon Soppy, and obviously, as I said, when you look at his, current attributes, he is really good. Um, and so he is somebody that I would definitely recommend picking up if you want a Wonderkid in a right back slot. The left back here is also a very big talent, and he, you know, like the last guy, also has good current attributes. Not as good, but he's also a year younger. But I think the main thing about this guy is that he's got better potential. He's got a better potential range. He's got 140 to 170, which means worst case scenario, his worst potential is the current ability of Alex Telles. And his best is better than Jacques Cancelo by like 3, current ability or potential ability like points, which is amazing. And when you look at him, right, like he starts out with 16 tackling, amazing, 15 decisions. His physicality is already fairly well rounded. This is a guy that, with that potential range, with that determination, he is going to be a very good player for you. Obviously, fairly cheap as well. There's nobody in this team who's like, I think there's nobody who's more than like between 10 and 15 million. I think that is like the most expensive for any of these guys. So it's like a fairly cheap team as well. If you watch my other Wonderkids videos, which if you haven't, you should check them out. There are some good players on there that aren't in this team. But you know that I appreciate, players being cheap. I look at more than just their potential ability. I look at more than just their current attributes. It's also if they're, actually somebody that you would be worth the money. So this Jesus Vasquez, definitely a player who's worth the money. Next player is Rafael Luis, who by far is the worst, player in terms of current ability in this team. I think he has under 100 current ability, not like particularly good right now. But if you're looking at him, you can obviously see that he's got model citizen personality. And because he's in this team, you can also assume that he's got good potential. And he definitely does. He's got 140 to 170, which, put into the context of center mids, that is from Bruno Guimaraes to, I think, a little bit better than Toni Kroos. I think, or around the level of Toni Kroos, which is obviously incredible. In basically every single save that I play that goes for like 10 years, this guy is amongst the best midfielders in the world. And that model citizen personality, that is just going to get him places. He already likes to switch ball to wide areas. Yeah, this guy is somebody that you basically can't go wrong with. He is super cheap as well. I think he costs under 3 million to start. So definitely somebody who's worth picking up for that cheap of a price and that big of a potential, that good of a personality. Everything about him is amazing. The other center mid in this team, we had to get some more Norwegians in here. It's Philip Rønningen-Jørgensen. He isn't as good, in terms of potential ability as Rafael Luis. He's got 130 to 160, which is from Mark Noble to Valverde. So definitely, a bit of a difference, but still obviously amazing. And his value is obviously fairly low. I think under 5 million. Because he's playing in Norway. He's a fairly well-rounded center, as you can see here. 3 stars in this team in every single midfield role. And he's already got some very strong attributes for an 18-year-old here. If you start in the summer, which you most likely do, then he'll be 19. But still, definitely a player that, yeah, is worth picking up for how cheap he is, how good he is right now, and how good he could be. This team is set up in a 4-2-3-1, so we're going to start with the central attacking mid, but you could play him anywhere across that, attacking midfield three. He was in my top 10 Wonderkids video. It's Sakarian. He is just absolutely phenomenal. 150 to 180 potential range, which, for people who are versatile in that attacking midfield line, is worst case scenario Asensio, best case scenario Neymar. So, you know, he he could be pretty good. When you look at his attributes, he's already so well-rounded, so good. You can even see on his player traits, like he plays 1-2s, tries killer balls, gets forward, moves into channels. He's so good for that role. Fairly two-footed already. There's just, you can't go wrong with the Arsene Zakarian. Such a cheap player at the start of the game as well. If you don't, pick this guy up by default on the start of every single save, you're doing Football Manager wrong. Then for the right winger, and he's either the joint worst or the second worst. I think he might just be the second worst, right in front of Rafael Luis in terms of current ability. But Shaka Traore has got, 140 to 170 potential ability, which in terms of other like right wingers is Benrahma to Sterling. He's amazing, right? He is already, pretty good, and he's 16 years old. He's cheap. As I said, good potential. Why haven't you bought him yet? How long do I have to keep talking before you just go and buy him? He's amazing. There's actually no reason not to pick this guy up. On the left-hand side, we find somebody who is actually the same potential ability as Traore, just a couple years older and a lot better in terms of current ability. I think most people would prefer him in a central attacking midfield role, which I definitely understand. He's not the fastest, but he is obviously a very talented player. Facundo Farias, if you haven't heard of him, you need to find some new scouting strategies for your game. He's already got some cool traits. Not like amazing traits, but the same, as I said, same potential range as Traore. Other people are at the top of that range. It's not just Sterling, it's also Heung-min Son, Leroy Sané. Those players are also 170 current ability. So that's sort of like the company that these guys could be in the best case scenario. So definitely somebody who is worth buying. Also not that expensive, plays in Argentina, so just your standard South American Wonderkid. I mean, is anybody really shocked that I picked this guy? If you've watched my other Wonderkids video, you know that I love Lorenzo Luca. He's so cheap, he's so good. I love big strikers in Football Manager anyway, and Lorenzo Luca is just the perfect embodiment of that in the game. He's tall, he's good in the air, at actually hitting the goal from headers, and he's a brilliant finisher. He's already, he tries long range free kicks, plays with back to goal, shoots with power. He's everything that you want from a modern day complete forward. Of course, you can improve his passing, his playmaking a little bit, but that's the beauty of it. He's 20 years old, and his potential range is 150 to 180, which is obviously incredible. 150, for context, is around the same level as Alvaro Morata. And when you're thinking of, real life, you might be thinking oh, Alvaro Morata, he's not all that. But in Football Manager, Morata is really good. And obviously, 180, thinking that's super high. That's, joint highest with Zakarian, and his highest level was Neymar, which strikers are 180. Well, just a little someone named Karim Benzema. So, best case scenario, he is the guy who was the best striker in the world last season. So, yeah, if Lorenzo Luca is just somebody that everybody loves in Football Manager. He's always incredible. If you can get your hands on him, you definitely should. Um, but yeah, that is it for the team. As I said, I would love to do a simulation forward with this team, um, and see how good they actually become. I also have to say that I do have another video coming out. It's another simulation kind of video. I'm not going to spoil too much of it, but I will say that it involves a couple different clubs and simulating forward into the future quite far. I've already simulated like 20 years into the future at this point, filmed a couple bits for the video, but I want to get really far into the future and really see the impact of the little stuff that I did. So that video is coming out. It's just taken a long time to simulate. But yeah, feels good to be back with another Wonderkid video. If you guys enjoyed and watched all the way to the end, why not leave a like? Why not subscribe? Both of them are free. Both of them, you could just take it away at any point you want. There's no downside. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you in another video in the future. Goodbye.